tutandika emizannyo gyaffe nga ekling. So tiimu eri bulungi, tusuubira nti abaana baffe banaakola bulya naffe okufuna obuwangwa.
Twetaaga za Uganda njagena maaso ne Ingrid tukusaba ovuge bulungi ne abeetabye mu katundu kafa gwasekaya nkwagaliza ekiro ekirungi tova
No one removes tough stains faster. Program Guide is brought to you by
Jessa Smooth Yogurt.
Program Guide.
Always trusted.
Lizard check on.
You have to disqualify him.
Was not on the list. Therefore, he should.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
There are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. Choose ye what you will follow today. My name is Brian Londo. Welcome to the show. Mabel, Simon, Joel, and Isma are here to make sure that the day before the weekend is spectacular. Let's get started with the question of the day. Speaking of spectacular, I think my director is having a spectacular day. But you can be a winner this morning. Head over to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV. And of course, you can use Twitter at Morning at NTV and answer those simple questions. And of course, you can win a mag courtesy of Morning at NTV. Alternatively, use the SMS platform. That is 6565. And good luck to the winners. But also follow us on our Twitter handle at MBGold2 and at Mebkeb, at Joel Senyonyi, at Dakabachigung, at Kasiate, and of course at NTV Uganda. Good luck to all of you. And Mabel is at the NTV studios. Mabel, are you feeling the same way I'm feeling this morning? Are you taking everything as a miracle, or, you know, for you nothing is a miracle? You gotta work, work, work.
Life indeed is a precious gift, and I don't take this job for granted. So it is a miracle that I'm here. It is a miracle that I'm doing the job with you. I was wondering, what was this coat thing about, removing your coat? Are you trying to show us a six-pack or your...
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Congestion in Kampala has been overwhelmingly mentioned as one of the causes of people reporting late to work, pollution, and slow economic development. Now, KCCA has come up with a plan to avert this. According to the authority, a non-motorized transport system is the way to go.
Our public transport industry is unreliable at the moment, so we need to turn that and make sure we can offer a reliable service.
Those who cannot afford a bicycle have been advised to walk, which is good for one's health. The plan is also expected to reduce pollution caused by vehicles in poor mechanical condition.
People are meeting globally to discuss how to reduce pollution. So looking at options that are more environmentally friendly is becoming a very big topic, and cycling and walking are one of them.
However, this city's poorly planned roads could be a hindrance to the project.
You have narrow roads, but you have a beautiful, strong network, I think. So that's the design challenge we have to make, networks for cars, public transport, and cycling and walking.
According to KCCA, only 10% of people in Kampala use private means of transport, 30% use public transport, while 60% go for bikes. Initially, Kampala was planned for not more than 40,000 people, but population statistics show that by 2002, this city had close to 1.2 million people. Cities in developed countries like the Netherlands always plan lanes for all road users, including the ones used by diplomats' vehicles. The project has received a varied response by the public.
I would prefer riding a bicycle to my place of work, and also to avoid overweight.
If my job is to use a car, then I have to use my car. I have to drive my car to where I work.
Some of the things that any Ugandan would think about buying when they get some money to ease transport in Kampala is a vehicle. While those who do not earn much at least use boda-bodas to get early to work. Now that it is time to use bicycles, how many people are willing to leave their vehicles home and boda-bodas to come and use such a means of transport? Solomon Kawesa, NTV. Congestion in Kampala.
Well, at least using a bicycle is healthier. The Uganda government has blamed a delegation of officials loyal to South Sudan rebel leader Dr. Riek Machar for their failed talks with President Museveni. State Minister for Foreign Affairs Okello Oryem told NTV that the team did not communicate their intended trip to the Ugandan government, and therefore officials could not receive them at Entebbe airport. But the minister says government is still open for talks with all stakeholders to restore peace to Uganda's northern neighbor, South Sudan.
According to some media reports, a delegation of South Sudan rebel representatives loyal to former Vice President Dr. Riek Machar was stranded at Entebbe International Airport on Monday after Ugandan officials failed to receive them. But the State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Okello Oryem, says the rebel team neither notified them of the visit nor their plan to meet President Yoweri Museveni.
We had not got any communication of their time of arrival, and the persons who were coming represented them. Therefore, unfortunately, due to lack of this unfortunate lack of coordination, end up that there was nobody to meet them at the airport, and they therefore chose voluntarily to turn back to where they came from.
Now it is emerging that the rebel delegation is still interested in the meeting but want it facilitated by the chief mediator, former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo.
We had that to coordinate together with the office of the President Obasanjo, such that the trip or the visit to Kampala is again revived.
Government has been cagey on the agenda of the meeting, but the rebels told NTV that the matter of Ugandan troops in South Sudan remains sticky.
You know very well that the UPDF is in South Sudan. We have signed a cessation of hostility in January. It could not be implemented. The reasons why this agreement is not holding is that the presence of Ugandan forces in South Sudan is one of the factors. So we would like also to discuss this issue.
Minister Oryem says the president and government are open to dialogue to restore peace to South Sudan.
The chances are there. The government of Uganda is available to do everything it can to ensure that South Sudan gets peace.
At the weekend, the rebels and South Sudanese government troops engaged in battles for the strategic town of Nasir in Upper Nile State. As the situation in Uganda's northern neighbor deteriorates, government advises Ugandans to avoid fragile areas where it would be difficult to evacuate them in case of attacks.
We advise Ugandans about going further north to Bo and the Bentui region up where the conflict is. We've strongly advised them against going there. It is a very dangerous area to go to travel to, and it's a very dangerous area to which we cannot participate at this particular time to rescue you if you get involved, if you get caught up in that area.
Since December, when the war broke out and Uganda deployed troops to South Sudan, the rebels loyal to Dr. Machar have accused Uganda of undue interference in matters of a sovereign state. But Kampala says the intervention was to stop a genocide in the country and protect her national interests.
Parliament Speaker Rebecca Kadaga has named a select committee to investigate the mismanagement of workers' savings at the National Social Security Fund and why the fund bought shares in Umeme without approval. In communication read by Deputy Speaker Jacob Olanya, the 5-member committee has been directed to also investigate nepotism, unfair recruitment of staff, and illegal disposal of NSSF's assets. As
NTV, it's the 23rd. I am for members of parliament. While I was an active journalist, statutory institute, Hamuranga Chi, Sempija, Joseph Sewungu,
that's the
Anne Maria Nankabirwa,
corruption.
Maybe Alex Urhun. But well, I was also waiting for Latif Sebagala, the Imam of Parliament, to chip in and say that there is no Muslim on this committee, and clearly that there is only just 2 women. We'll see all this, and you know, we are grateful to the Speaker for trusting us, and we are going to take on the challenge. We are going to execute the assignment with the zeal and professionalism. Alex Urhunda, maybe.
So you think the other ones do not have the moral authority to investigate corruption?
Nobody has moral authority in this country to investigate corruption, but I'm also looking at about professional nuance, competence, and other things. And I can also tell you that NSF, for the most part, is being looked at as a cash cow. I mean, many people, anyway, I don't make allegations here, but the best thing that ever happened to these people, Christmas came to them in July.
Okay, the Daily Monitor also reports that
NSF bought illegal shares in Umeme after receiving 3 billion shillings in
but they didn't go through the rightful procedure. That 3 billion shillings is good for we that save with NSSF, where comparison really so, but they didn't go through the right procedure, really. And,
what procedure do we need?
For
me, a guy who believes in the end justifies the means. When I start hearing things of procedure, I just don't understand.
No, but you see, next time they will make a procedural error and then it will go up and they will not make profits and it will hound them.
Between your parliament and NSSF, if you are to vote on the best institution that actually does what it's supposed to be doing, who would you vote for?
That's a catch-22, my brother.
I'd vote NSSF. It's not very hard to figure out.
I don't know, because has NSSF delivered? They've got a 4 trillion shilling capital base. How much profit has come out of that? Parliament, yes, we have a bunch of guys there that are not doing too much. So
when I started working and earning some money some 15 years ago, my first NSF contribution was somewhere about 30,000 Ugandan shillings. You do not want to know how many digits in millions it is today, thanks to the profit that this company adds on to.
Perhaps there could be a lot much of a bigger profit, you know. But
yet, on the other hand, I've been looking, because I started covering this Parliament 2001 at Parliament, because that's when I just joined journalism. Another one came in 2006. Another one came in 2011. Another one will come in 2016. I am better off chopping wood. 200 houses burnt as clashes rock Oima. 200
20 houses.
Only 20?
Yes.
What, you expected more?
No, you know, with this, at this rate of tribal clashes and all that, sometimes you look at these figures and you are like, are they just 20 or they are 200? Because we've been talking about people dying and they were telling us the death toll has reached 60 in Bundibujo region, for example. But now we are waking up to the new reality that they're in fact mass graves. And when they're mass graves, we're not talking about tens of people dead. We're talking about hundreds of people dead.
Exactly.
So where are these other number discrepancies? Perhaps this is something we need to follow up. Now, tribal clashes, again, it goes back to what I was saying the other day. You may say tribal sentiments are boiling up in offline, far-off places in this country, in Hoima and other, dingy places. But I can tell you, you read Facebook posts by people you thought actually had a sense of understanding or have been exposed to some level of education, and they are there spewing their sectarian anyway.
There's a young man, I don't know whether he's
this
young
morning,
or
I
old,
can tell you.
That guy has kept it up.
He's on. I know him. Well, in the Observer, while we are asking troops to get out of these wars, so the other day Dr. Mumza was like, we may not be actively participating in wars, but we are kind of supporting. Uganda is involved in war somehow.
It is.
But the UN is asking us to contribute troops to CAR. Does this actually mean that our army is strong and
but it is, without
the
a
UN
doubt.
is
UPDF
trusting us?
With its many blue paths along the way, it has done a great deal. It has buttressed many of these nations, you know, in our environs. It is a good army. It could be a lot better. Yeah, there's lots of goof-ups they've made that need to be rectified. So we are respected. Does that mean we should just go running all over the place? Look, it does not help you very much. So, you know, if you're helping to feed your children, I mean, your neighbor's children, yet your very own are starving. Yeah, so one would imagine, can you concentrate a lot more? Perhaps our biggest issue is not security, but we need to take care of citizens in this country.
Why is it okay for you when the US is all over the whole world? And
that's
it's
the US.
not okay
They've got
for
the money to spend. We don't.
But the UN is going to pay for this.
Sometimes they do. In South Sudan, they told us they would pay us, have they?
South Sudan called us.
Yeah, and initially they said they were going to give us fuel and that kind of thing. Nothing has come through. But there's too much bad news in the papers this morning.
So because we are paying for our troops' presence in South Sudan, what about you, Joel Senyonyi, has changed? Did you miss a meal because government is paying for soldiers in Sudan? Has the road to your place become worse because government has been unable to
repair it? At least I don't stay on Robert Mugabe Road.
So I'm just asking,
I'm commiserating with people like you. That money would have been used to remedy Robert Mugabe Road.
No. If money is supposed to pacify a neighboring country is coming to do Robert Mugabe Road, please turn it into a potato garden. It is okay. Let South Sudan have peace. Let Uganda go and pacify the region, and let my road become a potato garden.
I'm not saying
I would rather live on a potato garden with peace than living on an 8-lane boulevard like in DRC, Congo, where there is no peace whatsoever.
But sometimes it is, you know, our involvement actually, it precipitates a lot more harm, if you've realized over the years.
That is the harm we are asking you this morning. What harm?
What harm? For example, are we doing in South Sudan?
Yes, if our armies go there and protect, because we have interest in South Sudan, no doubt. In CAR, we have interest, and Kony has somehow got us involved, got Congo involved, got CAR involved, got South Sudan involved in this whole conflict. So if we take our army to get the enemy there, or even help other countries, you know.
Actually, for me, my issue with South Sudan is not going to be remedied by, you know, bullets all over the place. These guys have got to talk. Yeah, so if we go there in and we are on one side and we are hitting the other, you know, it's a vicious cycle of sorts. Yeah,
but Joel, you are misrepresenting facts here. Tell us, when was the last time UPDF in South Sudan engaged in combat operations?
They actually went there apparently to keep peace, you know, and then again and again.
The mission changed.
The mission kept changing. You kept hearing
it has been
saying,
changing.
Look, when we are attacked, we will hit them also.
When we are attacked, yes. When have they been attacked? When has UPDF fired shots? Until now, UPDF is actually engaged in combat.
We've seen it happening a great deal. You know, I have friends that work there, business people. They tell me what they see on ground.
Listen, your friends are not operating in the battlefield.
They don't have to. They are on ground.
Let me tell you,
if they are seeing what is happening.
Stories of tribal clashes in Kasese.
But wait, we were ranked fourth
for you.
I think one that does teach us research coming out of it.
And Makere has.
Makere is the 7th. It is good. Makere is good. But here is the analogy of the one that is not exactly smoking hot, but you're sure you will have all the attention to yourself. Yeah, that's the challenge Makere students do have. You know, it is still good, you know, but you get there in and it's a tricky one. You know, there's no attention for you. They don't teach you, etc., etc. Yet others that are probably ranking 15th, 20th, they do pay attention to their students. I hope that.
Oh, I'd rather enjoy the beautiful one.
Center for World University Rankings. Who are these characters? You know. Anyway, talking about rankings and probes and all that, now we see Honorable Jackson or both now calling for a motion to probe LDC failure rates. And a former dean at Makere University Law School tells us here that this spate of failures into the law development, what they call it, this LDC bar course, is as a result of the liberalization of policy, where almost every little institution that has a name to itself called university is allowed to have a law course, and then all these half-baked, ill-baked or unbaked students claiming to have law degrees go to the bar course and only realize that indeed they possibly wasted 4 years without much ado. But Parliament
whose fault is it? I think the university should continue teaching. At the end of the day, if you're sieving out the best, the pre-entry exam, you know, should do that for you. So I don't see why they are complaining. If the kids are failing, the kids should work harder, period.
Are they failing legitimately? Many of them say no.
Your members of parliament are saying they need to probe.
But many of them are victims, you know, many of these guys. But look, if you've been to LDC, realize that it's a very small place, facilities are not adequate enough, and that is why they can only take on a certain number of students, yeah? So they will do whatever possible to get just that bit. And I think we need to expand that place.
But you see, Joel, at the end of the day, if we are 100 hosts of Morning at NTV, your role is to get, and they need 5, your role is to become one of the 5, period.
Yeah, but in this case...
And for me, that's what I believe in. When we're in school and we needed to get first class degrees, I did not care about the number of students that were studying with me or the size of the class. I made sure I get a first class degree.
You get a first class degree,
I got a second upper. Almost got a first class. But you see that.
So because you didn't get a first class, should you now call for a probe?
For a probe, why didn't I get it?
Not the point.
It was
for
my
me,
fault.
Well, for the probe issue, I think these guys are biased. Yeah, many of them are victims.
They are looking for an allowance.
They are victims, by the way.
To be on the committees.
But truth is, we need to expand LDC. It is too small a place.
They are building. LDC is building right now.
Yeah, I've seen that. Comes in as good news.
Well, we are told here in the Daily Monitor that Democratic Party President Norbert Mao is admitted to Nairobi Hospital, and the Red Pepper is screaming with a headline that the good old legislator party president was poisoned. Story we're following very closely.
I fear
of course, they're telling us he had malaria and abdominal pains. I think that is why now rumors are all over the place. I don't know.
In the Red Pepper, 9 Mumbere ministers charged and remanded.
Including their prime minister. For murder and so on.
And he says his kingdom has been left in a state of despair. And, well, he was also told he would be arrested, so I hope...
And he said there will be bloodshed. Quote of the day in the Daily Monitor. This is US Vice President Joe Biden on what he told then Russian Premier Vladimir Putin in 2011. Mr. Prime Minister, I'm looking into your eyes and I don't think you have a soul.
Well, I am sure Joe Biden, was he looking at Putin or he was looking at somebody in the mirror? We are seeing, you know, what's her name? Mabel did ask me about Jackie's story in the newspapers, and yes, the newspapers seem to have taken very keen interest in this case, so much so that there are highlights of the verbatim cross-examination that she went through at court yesterday. Trial continues, and yes, we continue to follow this case very closely.
Somebody writes here in the Monitor and says, increase Parliament's oversight role in managing public finances.
Oh!
Has this guy been watching you lately? Because nearly every morning you add umbrella to the fact that, look, Parliament is
what? This lawyer friend of mine, come journalist, Peter, please, again, like somebody already says, do not make the attempt of putting Dracula in charge of the blood bank. But you can try. I mean, we are always in Uganda. We are not averse to carrying out experiments where we are the specimen. But the little biology I did study at very advanced levels means that when you are carrying out an experiment, there must be a control setup so that just in case things go bad on this other side where the apparatus breaks or the specimens are adulterated, the control can show you what it ought to have been. This country should have learned from the past as a control that some of these people that you say you should public financing and you want to put it anyway.
Now,
but the question is, what choice do we have?
What choice do we have? Perhaps none. The letter of the day here seems concomitant to what you're saying. Our MP's reasoning is wanting.
But we are representative of our MPs. If you know your MP's, his reasoning is wanting, why do you vote for him?
Ask yourself the kind of people who, for the most part, vote to choose who becomes your next member of parliament or representative.
Yeah, because you, the non-wanting ones, do not vote.
No, I vote for the right person.
And according to you?
Yes. if the other 10,000 vote for a person I don't disagree, I have no power to change the vote, so really. Bwanika, why I meet Museveni now, Bwanika has been accused of at night...
Bwanika, please put
Bwanika, I believe.
People's Development Party chairman,
two-time presidential aspirant,
and loser.
No, you don't even have to add that, because that he has never been a president. It means that he's been losing the election.
Abed Bwanika has been accused of, I hear, wearing dresses at night and going to meet the president. Yes. And during the day, he acts as against the president. So these people put him to task. And he said...
so it is wrong for anybody, especially one who is in the opposition, to meet the president. I mean, you are
but
here.
you don't have to wear dresses to meet the president.
But if that is true, he who alleges must prove. If you want to allege that Abed Bwanika
I do not put anything past our politicians, gentlemen. I do not.
No, but also, why is he going to meet the president? Perhaps he's going there to offer comical, comical relief to the president. And so for him to wear a dress is more like, you know.
Our president is very stressed. He has 37 million Ugandans to be worried about.
Even if
but
he
look,
had 3.
You know, after his first failure at the presidency, it was rumored that he wanted was approached to become minister or something of the sort. And he was saying, look, there's nothing wrong with working with a legitimate government. And there it ended.
No, but one thing is for sure, if you listen to his campaign platform, for the most part, I think Abed, more like, I would want to equate him to this, you know, Kenyan of Somali origin who stood in the last Kenyan election, the teacher. He came out with very nice rhetoric that, you know, resonates with the common person. I can't forget the name. I can't remember. No, it wasn't Peter Kenneth. This is another guy.
The young man. Yes.
The sheikh. You see, Abed Bwanika's campaign was largely based on, you know, what he believed in, his utopian sense of looking at things, of what is a practical solution to Uganda's biggest problem. For example, he did posit that we should position ourselves as the food basket of the region so that this country is able to feed its people, but also feed the region, and that is the only way we can come out of the doldrums of poverty. He said all these are things we are clamoring for, oil and all that. That's not an area of our strategic competence. Yeah. I thought that was a very good message coming in from a guy who's vying to be president, as opposed to people who are going around just chanting slogans, again, you know. And at the end of the day, I say, okay, now what does that put on my table as an ordinary person hoping to see some change with regard to my sense of life?
You can't take it away from this man. He's got a good head on his shoulders. The first time he ran for presidency, many people thought his manifesto was the very best. But look, they thought he did not have this oomph of a quintessential politician. You know, he's not as charismatic.
They have a lot of drama.
And then, unfortunately, drama is what sells. Look at our friends, the Munyagwas and the likes, you know, Mugati Babata. People like them for the melodrama they have.
Right.
Anyway.
I think Munyagwa is not melodrama, it is tragic drama, because the tragic comedy.
And your friend Kalumba?
Nothing. What do wild ostriches eat? An interesting question, more like what do crocodiles eat? But well, that is a story playing out for the most part in the Seeds of Gold, your favorite pull-out in every Wednesday edition of the Daily Monitor, how you can harness the land on which you stand and make quite some good money. There is a story of one woman here who rears ostriches now.
I'm thinking seriously of becoming a farmer.
Rearing ostriches.
And chicken and goats. So that's mine. I'll probably be in the next pull-out of Seeds of Gold.
Wait a minute. These guys have seasoned this pull-out to come out like in another 10 years or something?
Fundraisers, a waste of time, says Museveni. And, you know, finally, the president, I think, has realized this is a waste.
Fundraising on what?
And he was very depressed when he attended the fundraiser for his school, and he says, you know, these people keep wasting my time. I go, you fundraise so little money, and then I end up giving more money. This is a total waste of time. If you have 200 parents, tell each of them, say, to contribute 100,000, and you get 200 million. But you keep wasting money. So he ended up giving 60 million, and I think they fundraised 10 million shillings. So he's tired of attending.
My challenge is whose money does His Excellency the President always give away? For Pajeros, I don't know, fundraising for this and the other.
I mean, it's like meeting me at my local pub here on the winter, and he's asking this man, Kasiati is drinking ESCOM money. Yes, I'm working for it.
No, so but for president, your salary.
But you see also,
listen,
the president has got, I mean, there's a certain level in management where you reach and you've got an entertainment allowance, you've got a donation allowance.
Then explain the supplementary, 700 billion plus.
It doesn't matter.
And then
at the end
these
of the day,
virtual salaries.
The day you become, when you sit around with the CEO, if you've noticed,
those are the
I do not know whether you've had a chance to have a seat with your CEO of NTV, Agikonde, you know, to have a drink and all that. Clearly, it would be abusive on your part to go and pay the bill. She would possibly sign at the Serena and all that.
I do not ask who.
Now, let me tell you, and that bill would come to NTV, and NTV would pay for that, because that's
a private company.
That is MD's what?
Those are the perks of the job.
Perks of the job. Yes. And it doesn't matter whether it is private or public. At the end of the day,
what is important is she has paid.
It does matter, because
there has always been an age-old saying, I don't want to say it in my local language, but I will borrow from your local language. Thank you very much. Now let's join Mabel, who is standing by. Perhaps tell us whether there is indeed a certain Namunzwa eating on its own squares somewhere on the international scene. Mabel, what's playing out on the international arena? Seems like the whole globe is catching fire.
Yes, indeed, Simon, it is. If you think in terms of the plane crash that happened in over Ukraine, because now many European and American flights are no longer flying to Israel. This was something that the Americans started, and so many airlines, Air Canada, Swiss Air, Austrian Airlines, as well as Lufthansa, amongst others, EasyJet as well, not flying to Tel Aviv. But we will start with CNN. Did Russia pull the trigger? Ukraine says yes. Well, I guess it depends on whom you actually ask. The Ukrainians are so sure it is a Russian. They say it's an absolutely Russian-trained, Russian-equipped, educated officer who pulled the trigger. They say they have taped conversations over Russian speaking to someone in a Moscow office just before the plane went down. The Americans, on the other hand, say it is the pro-Russian rebels, but they believe Russia was behind it. So the Americans are not exactly blaming the Russians, but they say they knew what was happening. Again here, they say that despite the fact that they knew what was happening, they didn't know that it was a civilian plane that they were targeting. Probably if they had, they wouldn't have fired the shot. Moving on to BBC. Now, this is very interesting here. This is Brooklyn Bridge. Now, I think people have a lot of time. Someone climbed up here and put a white flag and removed the American flag. And the police in Brooklyn are not taking this too lightly. They are serious. They say this is not a joke, and they're studying CCTV footage to find out who actually took away the American flag and replaced it with a white flag. But in my opinion, a white flag is, you know, a symbol of peace. So they are investigating this. This thing happened yesterday in America. Now, David Cameron has called for an end to female genital mutilation. Now, the interesting thing here is it is also happening in the UK, and he's saying parents are now going to be arrested because of this practice, as well as early marriages. If it continues in the UK, they're going to arrest the parents for that. I do not know if that would actually work here in Uganda. And Glasgow 2014, today is the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. According to Sir Chris Hoy, the Glasgow Games will be the biggest and best Commonwealth Games ever seen. He said this ahead of the opening ceremony today. Over 4,000 athletes from 71 nations will be taking part, and we do wish our very own Ugandans the very best. Also on BBC, the US and European airlines hold flights to Israel. US and European airlines have been suspended over a rocket which landed very closely to the Ben Gurion airport in Israel. Obviously, Benjamin Netanyahu is not taking this too lightly. He's saying, you know, it's all safe and calm. They should start flying back. I'm sure it's affecting the economy adversely. People are actually landing in Paris. For those who want to go to Israel, I do not know how they'll connect from there to Israel, but I think they don't trust the Middle East at all. Now, the MH17 on Sky News says about 80 bodies are still missing. The bodies that were found have been flown to Netherlands and given to forensic teams there. British experts say they will examine the data from the black boxes, and that was in a tweet sent by David Cameron. Also, yesterday, apparently there was a game. Manchester City was playing against a Croatian side. This was an under-21 game, but after halftime, they stopped the game. Vieira walked onto the pitch and called it off, had a few words with the referee, because apparently this guy here, Seko Fofana, was racially abused. And we do know that in sport, they are saying no to racism. Was it the right move? According to the Croatians, they say they didn't know what happened. They just saw the team walk off. I'm sure we will get to know the full story later on. That's all we had for you. Morning at NTV continues.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
1 million shillings are for grabs every day. Kagwida Woku Airtel Money. Simply send and receive money, top up your airtime or data, pay for utility bills, groceries, fuel, and much more with Airtel Money. And you could be one of the day's 5 lucky winners. And if Mr. Money and his crew find you making a transaction, you win cash on the spot. Terms and conditions apply.
Airtel Money. Simple, secure, instant.
We need to see laws that are deterrent in nature, because we know that when you have laws that are deterrent in nature, then they'll make the abuse of public resources very, very risky. Section 74(2) and Section 76(3). Other than looking at 500 currency points, we propose actually 1,000 currency points. And the term of imprisonment is very, very low. 4 years is very, very low when you consider the amount of monies that have been lost. Again, from 4, we'd actually want to see 8 years as the term of imprisonment. Clause 76(1) tends to make it a bit discretionary and a bit relaxed on the part of the minister when it comes to making the regulations. However, we'd want to see the clause being very specific. Other than the word may, the minister must make regulations that are going to enable the operationalization of the Act.
This message is brought to you by CS Bank.
Coming soon on NTV. Soon on NTV. You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
Welcome back. This is Morning at NTV. We now cross over to the Serena rooftop to Simon for today's big story. Good morning, Simon.
Yes, good morning, Mabel. We are looking at a story that we've tackled before on the big story here, and that's an issue of torture in Uganda's prisons. But then when we looked at it, we were speaking to the Prisons Authority. But today we're going to look at another perspective, from a human rights perspective, and talk to representatives of the victims who claim to have been tortured in prisons. So this morning I have the pleasure to have and host Disras Rakafuzu, who's a renowned human rights lawyer, and we put him to task to explain from his perspective what it is that he regards as torture in prisons, because we also know that prisons are not resorts. It's not, if you go to Luzira prison, it's not equivalent to going to Honolulu, for example, start sipping on pina colada as you are hanging out on a hammock. This is a place for reconstruction and a place of dumping for society's worst. Now, when you claim there is torture in there, what exactly are you talking about? That and many others is what we'll be discussing this morning. Well, you've had the resounding case, especially going around, of a gentleman called Godfrey Dikusoka, who claims to have been tortured brutally. Well, if you've been tortured, you're tortured, then really have to be brutally. But, well, he claims to have been brutalized at Kirinya government prison sometime in 2010. And since then, his life has never been the same. He's moved places, talking to whoever cares to listen, of the brutality in Uganda's prison cells. The Uganda prison authorities say, of course, that one, it is not their deliberate policy to torture people in there. But let's not also forget that people who are in prisons are not the ordinaries, Kasiate or Ladislas. It is hardcore people who are in there, perhaps against their will, many of them against their will, and therefore they will be the kind of people that are not willing to toe the line. And the fact that they're in prison, of course, they have not toed the line of the free society, and they can be a bit very difficult. And so, for the most part, they will use some reasonable force to bring them down into check. That reasonable force spilling over into torture is what we're going to be discussing this morning. Where does the line begin to be clear that now what you're using is not reasonable cajoling force, but has now gone into full-blown brutalization and torture? Good morning, Aldislas.
Good morning, Simon Kasiate.
As a human rights lawyer, many of your clients or people that you represent will always claim to have been tortured massively by prison authorities.
Yes.
Then there are those who claim that, well, this is an exaggeration of people who are coming out of jail having served their term but are failing to cope with society's demands or pressures on them, and they're trying to present a sob story so that they can be looked at with pity once again. What exactly is the truth of either way?
By the way, allegations of torture in lawful custody is very limited. It's not very common. These allegations are not very common. There are not many people who allege that they have been tortured in jail or even killed. So if some of these few allegations arise and appear in whatever form, it becomes very necessary for these to be investigated. Now, you will find that, like one particular case of my client Yahya Lukwago, he says that there was a physical brutality which was
meted on him.
Meted on him and several other of his...
Especially after they attempted a jailbreak. That is the part that he never tells us.
No, not really. There was no attempt on a jailbreak. But then, you see, it's okay. If there is that kind of defense, let the prison authorities have a clear investigation, a public investigation, so that these defenses come up.
So, we are going into a lot of procedure here. Here you have found unruly a bunch of inmates attempting to dig a hole through a prison wall.
Yes.
You have apprehended them and they are trying to resist.
Yes.
Of course, you know that people in the jail are not the ordinary communion of saints. Yeah? And you also know that there are more prisoners to prison warders in this country.
As they should be.
But you see, even our ratio is quite wanting.
Yes.
I mean, yes, there can't be more policemen than ordinary people in society, but at least there must be an acceptable ratio that one policeman polices 500 people. In jails here, we see the ratios quite obnoxious in the sense that prisoners are a lot more than this. You expect them now to first subject them to a public hearing, massaging their ego and all that, or sometimes...
By the way, that's what the Prisons Act says. If there is any breach of the prison rules,
there must be a public hearing.
You see, there is an internal mechanism of hearings within the prison. People must be subjected to a fair hearing within the prison. I think there are 3 tiers, but I don't remember the details. There is
in other words, you say there must be, you know, even if you're in jail, your rights as a human being need to be respected. Fair enough. Now, what constitutes torture? Because some people have said the fact that prisoners are subjected to manual labor in places, you know, asked to do all sorts of things, and do not even earn from the proceeds of that to a substantial level, that could also constitute torture. Does that resonate from where you sit as a human rights lawyer?
No, it's like this. Our Bible says that let he who does not work not eat. So whoever you are, you must work. So there are prison regulations that show that these prisoners who have been sentenced, who are serving a sentence, other than the ones in condemned section or on remand, those ones must work. But they must work reasonable hours and with the proper implements, and they should not be overworked, and they should not be given too much work. So all those regulations
Who
are there.
determines what is overworked, too much work? What is this threshold? Because this just remains there, and it is very subjective. So any warder can determine what they consider to be underworking or overworking.
Well, you see, the thing is, I personally have not had prisoners complaining of being overworked. But if there was such a complaint, there would be need to investigate it. But the complaint I've had is about torture.
That now what I'm asking you is what constitutes torture? Because I just said some of the prisoners claim being overworked is torture. But then what exactly do they mean?
Under Article 24, the torture that is prohibited is that kind of treatment that is beyond, that is not within the law itself. When the court is sentencing you, to a jail term, the assumption here is that you are going to be taken out of society, and at the minimum you will do some manual work to maintain yourself and maintain the facility. But beyond that, if they begin slashing you, for example, the Constitutional Court some 10 years ago said that corporal punishment is unconstitutional. So you cannot beat people. So if corporal punishment is unconstitutional and yet the courts had the jurisdiction to award such punishments, it is even worse if you begin beating people without a sentence of court. So when people are beaten into subjugation so that their will is bent, so that they are forced into certain things, then that is a kind of torture.
Supposing
that is not what the court...
to beat them is to cut them to size, to put them in a place where they should be able to fit. Because, I mean, this is a catch-21 situation for prison warders. How else are they able to host and accommodate these people who, let's be very honest...
But they do. You see, let me tell you, Simon, it's as if the whole of Uganda prisons is full of these beatings and whatever. No.
That's the impression that you create as human rights lawyers. When your client, Yahya, comes out, he starts claiming, oh, I saw someone being killed. That was not the only one. Every day of my life, there were people being beaten.
No, he didn't say that. I think my client should be understood. He mentioned specific instances. And he was in that jail for over 14 years. So, and he only mentions specific instances and during specific times. So it's not true that all the 14 years he was in jail, he was being tortured, he was, he appreciates that he was serving a sentence, but he brings out those features which were unconstitutionally imposed on him, the torture, the beatings, and the starvation.
Let's put it this way. That's one client of yours.
Yes.
But when you look at because I'm sure as a human rights lawyer, you've taken keen interest in looking at the grand scheme of things. Yes, indeed, you did admit that cases of torture in Uganda prisons are rare. And in fact, when one rears its ugly head, then it's a point of concern and you jump onto it.
Yes.
Now, let's put it at a state of investigation. From what you have found out, what is the state of our prisons and the conduct of our prison warders? Can we calmly say that they are trying their job, they're trying to do their job in difficult circumstances, and there are all these, anecdotal reactions that come in every so often? Or can we say there is a deliberate move to have prisoners tortured in?
I don't think there is a deliberate policy in prisons to have prisoners tortured. There's no such a thing. I think among the most professional Ugandans we have are prison warders. Those people do a great job. They are very patient, they are very poorly paid, and but they continue soldiering on. So in my opinion, the few instances that happen
has to be addressed, and the prison authorities have said that they also address internal misconduct.
Yeah, but you see, let me tell you, if a prisoner comes up and says, an ex-prisoner comes up and says that there was even death in prison, and there's not a single government officer raising up the matter for investigation. The law is very clear the law on inquest is very clear. The Inquest Act says any person who dies in custody, whether unlawful custody or in lawful custody, there must be an inquest. An inquest is a commission of inquiry
into death.
Into the death. But it is a permanent commission of inquiry because death always happens and a natural death always happens. So now, for the last 1 month, these allegations have been around. I have not been contacted. My client has not been contacted. There's nobody who is bothered. In my opinion, really, what the Minister of Internal Affairs should be doing at this stage would be saying, look here, Mr. Rakafuzi, where is your client? Let us set up a commission of inquiry and investigate these matters. I mean, really, you see, instead, government goes on the defensive. I mean, that is wrong. When you look at Article 20 of the Constitution, Article 20 of the Constitution clearly doesn't say government should be on the defensive whenever matters of human rights abuses are aired. When these matters are aired on oath, what government should do is to institute an investigation. Because we are all I mean, we are all potential.
Rwakafuzi,
yes.
We had a debacle in Kanungu not very recently.
In 2000.
Commission of inquiry was set up.
Yes.
Or was it not?
It was.
We are just seeing a report coming out in 2014.
And that is after
we're
a lot
about
of...
hundreds of people perishing in an inferno.
Yes.
You, with your one case witnessed by Yahaya, you expect the commission of inquiry to be instituted and the results to come out when?
These are governance. These are issues of governance. Let me tell you, Simon, these are issues of governance. When we as a civil society or individuals do not care to raise these matters. For example, now, Yahaya has gone to court seeking for an inquest in these matters. So, court will make an order. And let me tell you, court made an order of inquest in 2010 in another death of someone else. But what is very interesting is that the inquest has never taken place. And
precisely my point at the beginning.
Yeah, I know, I know.
We're just going into procedures, but which procedures do not have
but you
any
see, the law is,
actuation.
The law is on our statute books. We must obey it. Some of these laws have to be resurrected. Let me tell you, the Nguli Act is still on our statute books, and nobody obeys it. You see, I know of a case of a magistrate who declined to hear the case. He said, "Look here, my fees was paid through this product, so I'm not going to hear this case. I have an interest in it." He handed over the file to the chief magistrate. So, but that's the Nguli Act. There are so many laws which are on our statute books, very good laws, which we have not implemented for a very long time. Let me tell you, all these magistrates are supposed to be coroners in their jurisdictions. Any death that happens unnaturally, every magistrate is supposed to be the head of the commission of inquiry in every jurisdiction. But I can tell you, you pick any magistrate and talk to any magistrate.
They do not know that is part of their KPIs.
Yeah, but you see, it's also because even at the Lord Government Center, this training, I went through the Lord Government Center personally. They never mentioned the Inquest Act. I read it personally. Even the Judicial Studies Institute here, which is supposed to keep the magistrates
on top of their game.
Yes,
every so often.
They have not. So in other words, but someone, a spirited individual, must come up. Like me and others, and you, Kasiate, by hosting me here. That's why I came from my sleep, because I'm in court vacation. But I thought this is an occasion for me to speak to the nation and say, look here, we need to put
actuate our laws.
Yes, to operationalize. You see, when you look at Article 22 of the Constitution, it says that nobody shall be killed without a court order. You see? So, in other words, every death that is unnaturally caused must be investigated into. There must be some accountability. So we do not just fold our hands. Let me tell you today what is happening, Simon. A person dies in unnatural circumstances. These border people are being killed every day now.
They kill themselves for the most part also.
Exactly. And what happens is that these people go to police for permission to be allowed to bury. So if it is a distance, the police will say, we don't have fuel, give us money for a border. Maybe if the policeman on duty has some sense of duty, will go there on a border and they say, sorry, please bury. And he comes back. Actually, the law says you cannot bury a person who has naturally met his death without
express permission of the state.
Yes.
But you see, Ladislas, just like you say, there are areas which are grey in nature. Some people will also argue that the fact that prisoners are sometimes denied visitors, that is an affront on their rights.
That is
Some have been extended it to say that the fact that there are no conjugal rights in jails, that is a big affront.
Conjugal rights.
You know?
Conjugal rights.
I mean, I want to understand to what extent should people who have been locked away from society, I mean, by the time they are in there, certain rights have to be denied of them. What are those rights that should be denied of them, and what are those that are inalienable that everyone, no matter whether you're in incarceration or otherwise, you should be able to enjoy? So that we know when someone is making a clamor, what are they clamoring for?
You see, a person who is in jail should be treated with dignity, with respect, irrespective of whatever offense that person is alleged to have committed or has been convicted of. He should be You see, when you deny that such a person food,
is this known to people who, like, for example, run and manage Guantanamo Bay, for example, and we're talking about the world's biggest democracy?
Yeah, but that's why it's a public
grand
outcry.
standard of public morals, human rights observance, and all these big things that they stand for.
Yeah, but you see, if America breaches the law, it does not mean that therefore the whole world should do the same.
Let's get down to
why can't America also follow us and say Uganda is doing very well? Let us follow Uganda. Let's take the example. We are also human like they are.
That's an argument that we would never win, of course. But let's get down to what should be and what should not be in terms of rights and privileges to a prisoner.
In terms of rights and privileges,
according to our laws, our municipal laws.
Yes, yes. When you read the case of Chigura, which went to the Supreme Court, the one which was challenging the death penalty, the lordship said that every prisoner who is in jail must be treated with dignity and respect. And this completely precludes that kind of torturous mistreatment of that prisoner. And this person, whenever the person is serving that sentence, only lawful activities must happen to him. For example, the prisoners' authorities, as I've already said, they have power to impose punishments internally. You see? But if it is something beyond them, they are supposed to take that prisoner back to court. You see? For example, if there is an attempted jailbreak, that one is not...
If a prisoner murders a fellow prisoner.
Exactly. That one goes back to the court. You see? But to say that, you see, you impose discipline by beating and killings, that one is not allowed.
Ladislas, a very final one on this one. Yes. Do you, as human rights lawyers or civil society that clamors for this right, how often do you engage prisoners' authorities to, you know, touch base with them and see to what extent they are struggling to meet the dictates of what you consider
every day, personally, as a human rights lawyer, I'm every day in touch with the prison authorities because I need them. I need their cooperation because most of my clients are in jail. So, my experience is that these people are very professional. They do a good job. A few times we have problems with the Luzira, but it is understandable. It is maximum prison and
highly populated now.
Exactly. Yeah, but now let me talk about very briefly about the sentences today being imposed by the courts. Today, since the case of Chigula, where the Supreme Court said that
no more killings.
No more killings. So, okay, they didn't say no more killings. They said it should be in very few instances. So the practical thing now for the courts is no longer to impose the death penalty. Instead, what the courts are doing is
life in prison.
Life in prison, without
the possibility of parole.
Exactly. Personally, I think it is an illegal sentence.
Why?
It is an illegal sentence because it is not provided for in our law. Our law only knows two types of sentences. Okay, there are several other, but the imprisonment sentence for a given term that ends at 20 years. Life imprisonment has been defined to be 20 years. And every sentence in Uganda is subject to remission. Because the prison warders, the prison authorities, it's the only stick and carrot they have to impose discipline in these prisons. By saying, look here, we give you some remission or refuse your remission and that kind of thing. But now you have taken away this stick and carrot from them and you're giving them people who are very disparate. This is going to be very dangerous. Secondly, without Parliament intervening to come up and have a thorough law on paroles and so on and so forth, we are going to have a very big problem because as I speak now, we have more than 100 prisoners who are not subject to remission because of the various sentences that are being imposed. Now, the danger with that, these prisons which are not being expanded will soon lack capacity to handle. Because in the past, what was happening was that some people come in, others go out. Every day there were people leaving.
Coming in and
exactly.
leaving.
Yeah. But you see, as I speak now, there are people who are permanently there. People who are very desperate. And the training for these prison warders is that every prisoner, other than the one in condemned section, is subject to remission. That's the training they have, and that's the attitude they have. And those are the tools they have, and this has been denied them. So I think the courts should stop imposing those sentences till Parliament intervenes, because government needs to have a policy on punishments and also expand its prisoners. Its prisons.
Ladislas,
yes.
Many times you have this well-meaning and
I'm a practical person. I'm not idealistic.
Ideas.
I'm not idealistic, but I'm being practical.
Practical how? When do you think these things can come into implementation?
These are issues of governance. We have always clamored. You see,
I don't want to ask you about what you think of our parliament.
Let me tell you.
This parliament is going to take time off their very busy schedule probing more lucrative issues like NSSF into discussing these matters?
As a human rights lawyer, when you are very much interested in these issues of human rights and so on and so forth, you cannot run away from issues of governance.
Yes, but I'm saying our parliament would find it more lucrative.
It's not parliament, it's the executive.
To sit down in a probing NSSF, discussing whether Umeme or the other companies should be kicked out of here. That's more lucrative,
I know.
You understand what I'm talking about?
I know.
Than this mundane discussion of prison sentences and all that. You actually think that can come to play in the nearby future, where you, Ladislas, will be within your prime?
You see, what is happening today, we have very important people like my friend Kashaka, who has gone to prison, and a few more others. You see, the riffraff of society is no longer the only people who are entitled to go to prison. So I think that way, people will realize that we need to do something
to prepare for your day in jail.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Ladislas. It would never have been more of a pleasure to have you on this show this morning to articulate some of these issues that for the most part remain a bit of a grey or utopian sense of feeling for many of our viewers and many people in society. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Let's take a short break. When we return, it's Simon Says. Not yet. Well, there you've heard it, the issue of human rights abuse in jails and, of course, the absence of a proper policy on incarceration or even custodial as sentences as meted out to those in society who courts find unfit to be with us and send them to jail. Like Ladislas did conclude, the riffraff of society are not the only potential candidates of prisons. It could be me or you or anybody else that now is in position to make a difference in the state of the prisons in Uganda. Because you never know when your day in jail will come. But what you will have done as a free man to ensure that those in jail at least not live a hellish existence will also play out in your favor should you find yourself in that unfortunate situation. Perhaps it goes back to the old saying that do unto others what you want to be done unto you. Well, those of you who are able to do something about the state of prisons, from the congestion to the human rights abuses, few as they may be, to the welfare of the warders, you better do it now. Because there will be a time when you wish you could have done something about it, but you didn't. Talk about wishing you could have done something, but you haven't. Today is another bright, sunny day where you ought to get out of your comfort zone and go be productive. Because if you do not, there will be a time when you wish you could have done, but you didn't. And that will affect you when especially you're in a position when you are unable to turn back the hands of time. Let's go and do some work, get productive, and the concerted effort and the grand sum of our little efforts wherever we are will certainly play out in the grand scheme of things and move this country to a better pedestal where we'll all be glad to call it home. Good morning.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
Aro, give me 5 stress, 3 gonorrhea.
Kale muli wano, you think you've brought capasas? Omwana yena sobolo gamba super deep. Simyaka jafe.
I'm like, I like my swag too. So what about it? Then she was like, I also like your accent. that village accent. Now.
Kati mwogera mu kibimbiri wana kuza kene chiri kyanu chiri okay why nsanyufu weneka political tayakana nomuzanga nakajjawa
kati nekambuuza mukabete why are you crying nekagamba abasajja engeri gye bafulumiza mu lukwago.
I think I'm Big Mitch Larry Hoover. Put that in Kiprotich's accent.
I think I'm Big Mitch Larry Hoover.
The average age of the international team is under 18. And
the primary role of Team Uganda is to remain to Division 2.
Probably that's the only thing that can make one or two rugby fans smile, that the Cubs are doing well.
The players haven't put on they haven't wore the game faces. They're not the animals we saw last season, because Ferguson had the same group of players and he did deliver the Holy Grail, which is the title.
Ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli lwakuna butereevu ku NTV akawungeezi.
On the next episode, brought to you by
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
Log in,
Expect the best this week on Login.
Isn't this the yellow piglet that was moving around Parliament? Oh. I thought it was a rabbit. What do you mean a rabbit? Can you tell the difference between a piglet and a rabbit? Oh, Mama, this is a piglet.
Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You can bring everybody in parliament as long as they can wake up and vote for the NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am Muyai?
It's absolutely true. I admired President Museveni.
Is the ICC a fascistic court targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only the two individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
Thank you for joining us this beautiful Wednesday morning here at Morning at NTV. A very cute picture of the prince who turned one yesterday, Prince George Alexander Louis of Cambridge, obviously the son of Prince William and Kate Middleton. This is a furry animal he was given as a gift, but he actually threw it down. Now we have a picture here of some of the people who attended his birthday party yesterday. Obviously his mum here, a picture of him there, the Queen. his cousin, I mean the lady Zara, who is actually a cousin to Prince William and Kate Middleton's mother down there. Well, we do wish him all the very best. Lots of pictures of him during his first birthday. He took a tour with his parents to Australia and New Zealand, one of his first official duties. And here is a picture of him when he was being baptized by, being christened as they call it, and obviously his grand entrance into the world. Moving on to some of your Facebook messages this morning regarding the state of prisoners. We had Rakafuzi, who was hosted by Simon, on the big story. People are beaten into subjugation, and it is indeed torture. Now we have Nkugwa Godfrey saying, this is in response to corporal punishment being illegal. Nkugwa Godfrey says they should start now respecting prisoners' rights. We are glad, I guess he's glad about the fight Rakafuzi is putting forward. Rakafuzi says torture is indeed prohibited. And on to other messages here. Medi asks, is it allowed for them to be flogged and to be given hard labor? We have Rivals Dennis saying, morning, but now like in Masaka, the prisoners are always outside. Can that lawyer elaborate if it's legal for prisoners to riot in prison uniforms? Well, I'm wondering what that means, because there's not much else they can riot in. They do have to wear their uniforms. We have Godfrey also saying that this is in regard to the internal mechanism of hearing people in prisons, of hearing their stories. Godfrey asks, how are they going to compensate those prisoners that died in the car accident yesterday? And we were told, it actually wasn't yesterday, it was 2 days ago, when about 5 people died in Western Uganda. They were thrown off a lorry. And we have Deo Stamina saying here, Dark Stamina saying, prisoners should not be overworked because that's what they deserve. Prisoners are not in their homes. After all, they will go back and disturb people again. And no sympathy from that gentleman. And Godfrey Nkugwa saying, prisoners' rights should be respected, I guess, in terms of human rights. Now, on to other comments on the on the press review today. We have Kevis Katende saying, I congratulate Makere because I didn't expect it to be in that position, number 7 in Africa, because everything is, because they are rioting all the time. I like Bwanika. He's a brilliant man and is a visionary. Thank you, guys. We have Johnson saying the debate is quite cool and well done. Kaketo Ibrahim saying, wonderful. Now, if you haven't yet liked our Facebook page, over 22,800 likes, and these are organic likes. So head over, post your comment, and we shall be glad to read your message. You can also follow us on Twitter at Morning at NTV individually. I'm at Mebkeb. Brian is at MBGold2. Joel Senyonyi at Joel Senyonyi, and Simon Kasiate is at Kasiate. You can also text us. 6565 is the number to text us on. If you'd like to share anything with us, let us know what is happening in your area. Lots of pictures here from what happens usually behind the scenes. Now, we shall be crossing over to the other side for everyday life. Good morning, Brian.
Things that Ladislaus Rakafuzi, who is not just a human rights lawyer, but also the lawyer for the gentleman who has made news on, on the station, and he talks about torture being prohibited, and it's that kind of treatment that is not in the law. And he also goes on and says, I haven't heard of prisoners complaining that they've been given too much work. Prisoners must work, but for reasonable hours and with proper implements, and not given lots of work. There's an internal mechanism of hearing people in prison. And of course, that conversation can continue on our platforms, Facebook and Twitter. About 1,969 people on Twitter. I invite your friends to follow us too. The handle is @morning@NTV. Feel free to tag @NTV Uganda and continue that discussion over there. Now, as many as 8% of girls and 2% of boys will develop a urinary tract infection. What causes it? What should the normal situation be? Coming up, we'll be looking at UTIs in children on everyday life. And joining us this morning on Everyday Life is Dr. Edson Morozi, who is a senior consultant pediatrician at Mulago Hospital. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm sure you wake up every day very early.
Yes, I do.
To do the work.
Yes, I do.
UTIs are commonly known in adults. Like, for me, I was personally very shocked to find out that children can also get UTIs. The pediatric work that you do at Mulago, tell us, give us a situation, paint a picture for us.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. As you, dear viewers, as you noted, that the UTI, urinary tract infection, also does occur in children.
Yes.
And as you said in your introductory remark, by 5 years, about 8% of the girls would have had at least an episode of urinary tract infection. And at least 1 to 2% of the boys, by the time of they are 8 years old, they would have had a urinary tract infection at least once in their life. Now, the urinary tract infection is common, but not so common like, let's say, malaria, anemia, and others. But it's relatively common. For example, in our practice in Uganda, maybe we see about one child a day with urinary tract infection, and maybe about 3-4 a week.
Right.
So it's not so common, but it does occur. But sometimes maybe because we do not look for it. Because as we shall discuss later, if we were to look for it, maybe it would be there.
At the time of diagnosis, you don't check it because...
We are supposed to, but sometimes because of the volume of blood, some people do not ask, for example, how the child is passing urine or not.
Okay.
Now, generally, the way children with urinary tract infection present, most of them is to do with their urinary habits.
Okay.
Usually, they will have pain when they are passing urine. Either pain or when you are passing urine, or passing urine frequently. They pass little urine, then they go back and pass little urine. And many people may not notice this, but that is the commonest presentation of children when they have urinary tract infection. They will have pain when they are passing urine.
Right.
Or they pass urine and then after a short time they go back and pass it, what we call urgency. Then secondly, they may also pass some blood in their urine. And many people may not notice the children's urine. They may pass blood in their urine. And then they also may have abdominal pain, usually the lower part of the abdomen. They complain of that, and especially on the sides, what we call the flanks of the sides of the abdomen, the lower part of the abdomen. And they have that, and of course, they have fever. And you know, many of our children do have fever.
Yes, you can easily think it's one of those. So
people can think it is malaria and they just treat them, but fever is one of the things which is common in children. Right. And then, of course, finally, the other common thing is that they can vomit, present with vomiting, just vomiting only. So in medicine, we talk of high index of suspicion. So if a clinician is seeing a child who comes vomiting, don't just think of malaria alone. It could actually be an infection. And to do this would be to check the abdomen and also do a urine test. In fact, if we, under normal circumstances, ideally, every person who comes to a hospital should have a urine check. And if we are doing a urine check, we maybe would be picking some more of these.
Yeah. So at the time of diagnosis, the parent should probably tell the clinician, you know, is there a possibility of the UTI? That's the responsibility of the clinician. They should be able to say, okay, we'll also check for the presence.
Yeah, of course. I think it is a responsibility of the clinician. I mean, the parent can come, my child has a fever. Now, it is the clinician to find out what are the possible causes of fever in a child. Not just because many of our children, when they go to, especially the lower health units, and they fever, they give them malaria and they go. But what it should be the responsibility of the clinician to ask what are the possible causes of fever. And one of them to ask, is the child passing urine well? Has it gotten abdominal pain?
Yeah.
Is it those kind of things? Then you can be able to pick it. You say, oh, you know, actually, although he has a fever, but he was complaining when he was passing urine, or he was vomiting, and you say, have you checked the urine? I haven't checked the urine, but maybe I saw the pamper was a bit blood stained. Then you can think of urinary tract infection. But first of all, we should also tell you that urinary tract infection mainly occurs in children below 2 years, mainly. The majority of the children get is 2 years. And we should also tell you that it is more common in girls than boys. And why is that so?
Yeah.
That is so mainly because generally it's more common in boys than girls. It is more common because of that, because it's most of the germs which affect which infect the urinary tract are coming from around the skin, around the urinary blood, rather the blood, the entrance of the urinary system into the body. That is the urethra, the tube which takes blood, which takes urine from the out, which connects the outside with the urinary system. That is the urinary bladder. So because of that, especially that's why it is more common in girls, because you know the girls, their urethra is near the anus.
Yes.
So the germs which come from the anus, they go in the skin around the anus, can easily go inside the private part. And then of course the other thing also that that tube of the girls to the bladder, urinary bladder, is shorter than the males. You see the males, the tube is very far, so that's why it is more common in girls than boys. And then, but then in the newborn period, just below 2 months, it's more common in boys than girls. And the reason for this is because male children tend to have more congenital abnormalities of the urinary system. The blockages and the rest are more common in boys. So usually they are picked in the newborn period. But after that, it's more common.
It shifts to the girls.
To the girls, yes.
Wow, that's interesting. What would be, before the child gets the UTI, what is the normal condition? How does it operate normally? The system as it.
Oh, the system normally. The system, okay, when you talk through if it is a male child through the penis, if it is a girl through the vagina. Now, that one which connects it to the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder is the bag which holds the urine before it is passed.
Yes.
Then from there, you have what we call the ureter. The ureter is a tube which connects the urinary bladder and the kidney. Now, then the kidney. So we have got the 4 structures: the kidney, the ureter, the bladder, and the urethra. Now, the urethra and the bladder, we call them lower urinary tract. The urinary bladder and the urethra, we call them the lower urinary tract. And then the ureter and the kidney, we call them the upper urinary tract. So usually the urine is formed, the filter. Bladder, it is there until you are and as you are going to pass, now of course mainly the bladder, and then and when we talk about identify it early from spreading further.
They should send your urine sample to the lab and test it.
Yes, and test it. And that's why we need to identify it early, because if we don't, this infection will go up to the kidney, and if the kidney are infected, then it can be a serious problem.
Yeah.
And it can lead to even the kidney getting shrinking and failing even later on, and you get high blood pressure and all other things.
Wow.
Yeah. So we really should diagnose it as early as possible. So ideally, even if the parents should also bother, how does my child pass urine in the morning? They ask them, they observe them and see how they are passing. Check your urine once in a while, the child's urine once in a while. How does it look like? And is he passing normal amounts?
Does it have to change color?
Yes, it does.
What color?
Because, for example, the normal urine should be clear white. If you are taking enough fluid than the rest, but because we don't take enough fluid sometimes, it should be light yellow, but clear and light yellow. Now, if there is infection, it can become a bit darker, what we call cloudy. We would call it maybe
dark yellow, almost orange.
Yeah, maybe orange would also be again to do the color that being concentrated. You know, more times when people are saying I'm passing yellow urine, if they say that, look at the eyes. If the eyes are not yellow, then the chances are that they're not taking enough water, so the urine is concentrated. But if you come to say, oh, my child is passing yellow urine, how are the eyes? If the eyes are not yellow, then the chances are that it's not taking enough. Even yourself, if you find you're passing yellow urine, look in the mirror. If your eyes are not yellow, you're okay.
You are fine.
Just take more water.
Okay, to dilute.
Yes.
All right, if you're just joining us, it's Healthy Wednesday. And on Everyday Life, we look at issues that concern health. And this morning, we're looking at urinary tract infections in children. And most of us just know that this happens in adults, but also children can contract this. 8% of girls and 2% of boys can get this. Dr. Morozi Edson from Lagos Hospital. This morning, who's a senior consultant pediatrician, is here with us to talk to us about this. So if you have children and probably going through this, please feel free to send those questions to Facebook and Twitter at Morning at NTV. And also the SMS platform is available. Send your question to 6565. He'll be able to answer it. A question here from James, and he's saying, do urinary tract infections have long-term effects?
Yes, they do. The long-term effects, as I said, usually the acute ones, especially the lower tract infections, if you treat them early, no problem, they recover completely. But if you don't, and they go up and affect the kidney, if the kidney is not treated early, then it can have chronic, we see what we call it acute pyelonephritis, inflammation of the kidney. If you don't treat it early, then as we said, it can shrink.
The kidney can shrink.
It can shrink. And if it shrinks, then it will no longer do its work as of filtering the impurities that come from the blood, forming urine and the rest. So if they don't do that, then you have it not doing it work well. Then you have all the metabolic products which are supposed to be removed from the body, which are harmful, being harmful to the body. And of course, they can also get high blood pressure, and then the kidney can fail.
Yes.
So that's why the primary purpose of treating it should be as early as possible and treat effectively. I should also add that the commonest cause, there are germs which cause infections. We have bacteria, we have viruses, we have fungi, and others. The commonest cause of urinary tract infection are bacteria. Majority. So they need to be treated, and they have got treatment, antibiotics. Only a few can have fungal infection, maybe the urinary bladder, but it's very, very rare. And then the fungi can only occur in children or adults who are immunocompromised, like HIV/AIDS, those who are on cancer treatment, and those. But otherwise, the fungi are not a problem, and viruses. It is mainly bacterial infection, which has got treatment.
Right. Jimmy Akena saying, what kinds of abnormalities of the urinary tract could a child have?
Oh, that's a good question. The abnormalities of the urinary tract, the common ones are mainly obstructions to do with the flow of the urine. Because as we said, for the normal functioning urinary system, urine should be formed in the kidney, travel through the ureter, in the urinary bladder, be held there until it is ready, but then pass through the urethra. Now, if there is any obstruction within that system, then see that. And the commonest is that, as we say in the boys, is where there is what we call where there is an obstruction, a structure which obstructs the urine flow, and then usually around the bladder and sometimes the kidneys. But you can also have some abnormalities in the kidney, but usually they are not so common.
How do you treat? You have diagnosed that you have it as a parent. You know that bacteria causes it. How do you treat then?
Now, what I've said, under good normal circumstances, we should check the urine to confirm. But of course, the urine can only tell you that it has an infection. But the best would be to do what we call a urine culture. If you do the culture, then you know what the germs are and what are the best drugs for them.
Yes.
But short of that, we treat them using antibiotics based on what we know are the common organisms which cause the urinary tract infection. And most of them, the common germs, are those which are mainly from the intestines, which come around the anus and then they peek into and we call them the coliforms there. So those which are usually in the stool are the commonest organisms, and we know the best drugs for them.
All right.
So you can, based on that we know the commonest are these. And of course, the other thing, as part of the routine practice, once in a while we do the culture sensitivity, we do samples of a number of children in a setting and see what are the common organisms and what are the best antibiotics. Then we keep doing that. But we know which are the best antibiotics for that. Based on the commonest organisms, we know them, and the best drugs.
Yes.
And I should tell you, most of them require either syrups or tablets.
For children.
Yeah, rarely do you need to give the injections. Those who usually will do injections if they have got the infection of the kidney. That's when they may require the injections.
Okay. Yes. Well, Irene Kitui on Twitter saying poor hygiene can cause UTIs, especially when the children are sharing toilets.
That's a good comment. Yeah, maybe we should say what predisposes the child to getting infections.
Yes.
One, we said there, if there are any abnormalities within the urinary system. But the second one is the common one, the toilet habits. So normally, the the toilet habits are that the child, especially the girl child, when they are, the young ones, when they are changing their diapers, they should clean from front backwards. Because if you clean from backwards, you are bringing these germs from around the anus into the, so you should clean from front.
So you, from up, down,
yes.
not from down
up. If you
up.
go down or up, you are bringing things from the anus into the private part of the girl.
Oh.
Yes. And also, they should also, even the older ones, they should also be taught when you are cleaning yourself, for up, downwards, not up, downwards.
Wow, that's
yes.
good. Huh?
And for the boys, the other thing which we also tell you, one of the predisposing factors is that for males who are not circumcised, especially the young ones, when they are not circumcised, they are also more likely to have urinary tract infection. And because the urine is tend to not to flow very well. And there are some boys who I find they have got the skin is very long. And if it is very long toward the urine, and the germs can also
bacteria.
Go in. Yeah, and sometimes also you can also the germs are narrow. So then that one, now the boys, again, for boys when they are passing urine, after passing urine, when you are cleaning them, it's good to retract the skin so that you expose the urethra can get and do that. Now the question of getting from toilets, I think, dear listeners, you cannot get urinary tract infection from the toilets. I know they say my child got to school, no, it's not from the toilets. You cannot share toilets and get from that. It is only if you are passing something comes from your own part, it goes into the...
And then it okay.
Yes. Of course, the other ones can also be maybe through praying and trauma. If there has been trauma to the urethra, also because of the inflammation, the germs can also go in and go out. Rarely can it come from the blood, because the blood, as it goes through the kidneys, it can also have some germs, and if you delay it past urine, it can do that. The other thing is that delaying to pass urine. You know that students, sometimes in schools, the child wants to pass urine, but holds on until break. That's not good.
It can cause a UTI.
That predisposes to it. Because you see, there are germs which are supposed, the urine when it's passing urine, it's also removing all the bad things.
Cleaning the system.
It cleans the system, including the urinary system. If you don't do that, you don't. And I've had some children who go from these very good homes, they go to school where they're using toilets, they don't want to go to toilets, they hold the uniform.
Or the teacher refuses them to get out.
Yeah, so you do that. Ideally, actually, a child should be able to pass urine every 2 to 3 hours. If they are drinking enough, they should be able to pass urine 3 hours. So we should encourage them to pass urine. If the child says, I want to pass urine, teach allow the child to go. If the father don't say fast finish eating, no, you should do that.
Wow.
Those are some of the things. But from toilet, no.
All right. Dr. Edson, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
definitely pay a visit to Mulago. And maybe next time, Dr. Edson will come back and talk about adults. But really, much of it is covered. Continue this.
I think for the adults, we shall ask an adult physician.
We shall bring an adult. Okay.
It will not be fair for me to talk about
a pediatrician talk about the adults. Yes. Okay, we'll definitely send the invite. And please send those questions to Facebook or Twitter, and the SMS platform is available. Like Mabel said, tag us on those comments, and we shall be able to get Dr. Edson to answer them for you. Isma, this morning also seems to be a very sporty morning. Uganda looking forward to the Commonwealth Games. Are we seeing more clear chances of getting any gold?
I'll weigh that when we have a bit of time, Brian, because I'll tell you that this is one of the events, international events, where Uganda does so well. We've so far won 44 medals since the event started back in 1954. And I'm hoping this event is like Christchurch. I'll tell you why Christchurch was very important back in 1974 in a Ugandan perspective, because of the number of medals that was won there. I'll also tell you about, Brian, why I think Joe Hart should be England captain, and Brazil have a new coach, but it's a case of the ex, because they have Dunga recalled to the job several years after he lost it.
Wow. Well, you know what? As far as England captain is concerned, I think I would give it to Rooney or something. We need someone hard and ruthless. And I think Joe Hart is not that ruthless. Well, we'll be talking sport when we return with Isma and Mabel. Stay with us.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
Hey there, Mr. Krabs! Are you ready to party?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to Wow! Hello, fellow motor enthusiastics.
Oh, Mr. Krabs, isn't there any way for us to return all of them back to normal?
Hey! How'd he do that?
The Red Ranger's a bigger problem than I thought.
It's time to finish this thing up.
What can I do to make them love me again?
What are you drawing, Kitty?
Hello? King Julian, you are truly inspiring. Ow! SpongeBob!
Nze musoke Tony. I've received the bitwala bi. Olida go, Mr. Mane, amkuwe chigo.
Banange chaddala tebalimba Airtel kagwirawo sente nzifunye ne message yinu. I have received 200,000 shillings of Uganda. Mwebale nnyo abakagwirawo.
Kituufu towakana akakadde kalamba kagwirawo buli lunaku ku Airtel Money. Kyangu nnyo weereza obafuna ensimbi saako airtime oba internet sasula biiru zo amafuta n'ebirala ng'okozesa Airtel Money. Oyinza okuba omukuba nnamukisa abataano abagenda okuwangula ensimbi buli lunaku. Ate singa Mr. Money n'ekibinja kye bakusanga ng'olina ky'okolako ne Airtel Money owangulirawo ensimbi mbagirawo amateeka n'obukwakkulizo bigobererwa.
Airtel Money. Simple, secure, instant.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Hey there, Mr. Krabs. Are you ready to party?
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. Wow! Hello, fellow motor enthusiastics.
Oh, Mr. Krabs, isn't there any way for us to return all of them back to normal?
Hey! How'd he do that?
The Red Ranger's a bigger problem than I thought.
It's time to finish this thing up.
What can I do to make them love me again?
What are you drawing, Kitty?
Hello? King Julian, you are truly inspiring. Ow! SpongeBob!
Fantastic.
This is the story of a forbidden love and a curse. Raised away from the curse, Solano Rangel returns to uncover his roots.
Solano! Those lands are mine. They're mine. I want those papers here. Look, in my hand. I hope he goes from the hospital to his grave. The big ones.
I'm right here. Come on.
What?
Dad, please stop it. Solano!
He is a brave and strong man, but he couldn't resist Estella's charms. A beautiful, mysterious woman who fights over Solano's love with Manuela, daughter of powerful Max Martinez.
No hard feelings, but Solano and I will get married. Congrats.
But she keeps a secret in the past.
I don't want to be present. I don't want to be here when it takes place. Solano!
The curse will be fulfilled.
Her real name is Estrella Karue. And her destiny is to fulfill the curse. Destiny written. On the next episode, brought to you by...
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
Men.
Do you know sometimes giving away control does not necessarily mean you're out of control? We have a child and the relationship does not work out. The way that child is used is more of my problem.
Find a girl, date her, don't sleep with her before you marry.
The decision not to be trapped by the baby is not a refusal to man up.
If you follow God's plan the way that it was, all these problems fall away. And it actually doesn't matter that in reality, Peter, it doesn't happen that way.
Only on Men.
You can download movies at the lowest prices another fast from Orange. Dial *1.
The funny conversations we have off air. You know, you can pay for that. Like someone can just leave the mic on and you say something.
Yeah, and I've had several who have done the same. For example, one of the best commentators, okay, the ones who had been there for a very long time, Andy Gray, while working for Sky Sports, at some point made what they called a sexist comment off air, because we saw he was watching a game between Wolves and Liverpool, and actually, as he saw the two teams emerge, one of the lines or assistant referees was a lady.
Female. I remember
and
that.
He said, I don't know whether she even knows the offside rule. Why are they putting women in football? And he lost his job.
Gosh.
These days he works in Qatar because he had to leave Sky Sports at the time. And actually,
And yet she made a good call. There was a tough decision to be made in that match.
Yeah, where Liverpool had to score from what would have been an offside. And actually, recently there is a former England cricket captain, Andrew Strauss. He made a comment about a fellow player. The words I can only tell you after we leave the show. But what he said starts with a C and ends with a T, and it's not cat.
I know it.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Put lots of bloopers there.
Exactly.
Lots of them. Isma joining us this morning. I definitely know our audio producer is fantastic. He cannot leave the channels open. All right, good morning, guys.
Good morning, Brian.
Isma, the Commonwealth, the opening ceremony is today. Is there any chance for Uganda? Tell us about the possibility of us taking a medal.
Probably before we get to the medals, you've got to look at what the Commonwealth is. First of all, it's an event for only those countries that were former colonies of Britain.
Colonialism still goes on, right?
There are 71 of them. The opening ceremony starts by that 11 p.m. Should be quite a feast, especially. I'm looking forward to watching all these men in the short skirts and with the checkered short skirts, you know, the Scots dress, and all those long trumpets that look like they won't end. Probably they would exceed the size of the stadium.
They're called kilts.
Kilts. Thank you, Mabel. No wonder you support England. But that should be quite a feast, I think, seeing them. 71 countries in all. Probably Uganda won't be the biggest attraction, because for me, I think there will be 3 big attractions. There will be Usain Bolt. He's coming to Glasgow.
Jamaica.
No, he's only going
for the opening ceremony.
No, he won't be there at the opening ceremony. Okay. But he'll be one of those, because he's going to be competing, and the 4x100 really. There's also going to be Mo Farah, the world and Olympic double long distance champion. He's also going to be competing, and Shelley Ann Fraser Prize. So that will be the big attraction. But after we get into the opening ceremony and watch Kyle Minogue and Rod Stewart and Susan Boyle singing, then we'll start to concern ourselves with what Uganda can do.
And our Kanzus and Gomez.
Our Kanzus and Gomez. Probably you look out for that. And Uganda is normally one of the last countries, because in the alphabet we are not Algeria. We are
By the time we come, people are tired.
Yeah, sometimes people are tired, because this ceremony is going to run from 11 up to around 2 a.m. So I know many people will be waiting for us to tell them how Uganda appeared. Charles Secha leads the team out, because he's the captain there, the weightlifting guy is going to be the captain. So he'll be carrying the flag, and all these 60 athletes and the 30 officials will walk out to represent Uganda on international stage.
30 officials?
I think most of them are coaches. It's one of those events where I think the selection is much fairer than many times. So because of the 30, 18 of them are coaches. So it's not as bad as the 12 the federation officials who are attending, for example, the Commonwealth Congress, that kind of people. So I don't think that 62 in all.
Okay.
And then I think in terms of expectations, Brian, like you asked about the medals, it's got to be either athletics or unboxing, because all the medals we've won at the Commonwealth have been from these 2 sports. We've won 12 gold 15 silver and 17 bronze since the Commonwealth, since we first took part back in 1954. And all these have gone to either athletics or boxing. No other sport has won a medal there. So I'd want to believe that athletics has got to be one. And we've relentlessly discussed Winnie Nanyondo here about being one of the medal prospects in Glasgow. And then I've got to look at probably Abraham Kiplimo in the long distance. There should also be a very good prospect. Okay. I would have loved the fact if Jackson Kiprop was competing here, but because he was in hospital and the couldn't go to Glasgow. But then, outside of athletics and boxing, I'd want to give the captain, Charles Secha, a chance. I think the weightlifters have prepared themselves very well. And actually, if you remember earlier this year, we hosted an event for the weightlifters in the Islamic Solidarity Games. And Uganda did very well. And knowing that some of the superpowers in weightlifting are not these. That's Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Egypt, some of those countries in the Middle East and North Africa.
And they are not there.
They are not there because they are not former colonies. So it should be a very good chance for some of these weightlifters to go and set Glasgow alight by winning some medals. So I'll be very interested over the next few weeks to know how Uganda will perform. But probably most of these events come down to athletics. And sadly for many, athletics won't start until a week into the event. That's until I think next week on Thursday. That's when the athletes come to compete. Yeah. But I'm really excited about this. I think when Nanyondo Sechaya walks out, I'll be cheering and thinking, gifted by nature for real.
Well, but also given Uganda's, you know, I think we don't support sport a lot, but 44 medals since 1954 is good.
It's good, but I have two questions for you regarding that. Doesn't it shock you that we won the most in 1974 when Amin was in power? And that was like over 30 years ago. And we are now more modern, more hopefully democratic. And we can't win anything. That's my first question. My second question, Mr. Isma Dakabachigongo. Why... last week you actually broke my heart when you said these are not very...
For all athletes, it's either the Olympics or the World Athletics Championships. And this is not meant to demean the Commonwealth, but they are standards. Probably there is, I don't want to compare this to NTV because probably the MD is watching, but there are standards in terms of where the events rank. There is Africa Cup of Nations, prestigious to win it. Nigeria did win it, but probably going to the semi-finals of the World Cup is more prestigious than winning the Africa Cup. Probably winning an Olympic medal is more prestigious than the Commonwealth. And for me, that's the bottom line. That's why Usain Bolt at the World and Olympics will run in the 100, in the 200, and the 4x100. Exactly. Now, after that, he cannot do the same at the Commonwealth because it's not the same prestige. It's not the same prestige that you'll earn. The second one, I think we all know that probably the president, the former president, Idi Amin, probably supported sport a lot more because he was a player himself in rugby. He was a lock on the second row and also a boxer. So in 1970, when Uganda was doing that well, I remember, I think one of the people who won the medals was Ayub Kaule. These days lives around Kawempa and actually suffers from a bit of Parkinson's.
Oh, that's the guy that
he's always, he has that shaky thing about
road work, though. You find him, you know, bobbing and doing his
that thing never goes high. But it tells you all, because we won 9 medals in New Zealand in 1974. So it tells you a bit about what support meant. And most of these medals, like I said, were either boxing or athletics.
But I like the fact you said you don't fight on points. No, it's knockout.
Knock out the guy.
Period.
Yeah.
7-1. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
You don't say penalties. No. All right, you see you against Vegetarian tonight and Max Sparks against Nkumba.
It's the end of the first round, I think, in the Airtel National Basketball League this week. So you see you who have been one of the better teams, though extremely inconsistent because they've lost 4 games, and especially some of them have been totally unsighted. Remember, they lost to Diamonds, and then they lost to Charging Rhino. Games we didn't expect UCU Cannons to lose because they're regulars in semi-finals. Now they have one of those teams that know how to get a result, because remember a few weeks ago, Vegetarian got that big result against Power. So I think UCU and their coach, Nicholas Natuheres, have got to be worried because they don't want to finish a round with a defeat. That would be very disastrous for them. And knowing that they'll be competing to get probably a favorable draw to get to the playoffs. So they need to finish, I think, in the top 3. And winning today is extremely important for them.
Okay, let's talk about beach volleyball. By the way, it seems people play volleyball near our place, where we live.
There's a bar where they play.
And there's sand.
But it's not professional. It's something different.
There in the evening.
No, the volleyball is not the attraction.
Anyway, maybe the uniform that the ladies wear. But Uganda did qualify last year I mean, recently for the World Junior Championships, but right now apparently there's some kind of financial difficulty.
The athletes that qualified won't get the chance to compete in Portugal next year unless they find some kind of miracle for either the Uganda Olympic Committee or Uganda Volleyball Federation do find it, because they can't find the resources. And I could almost have anticipated this, because it was only going to be the first time that Uganda compete in the World Juniors at the under-19 level.
Can't they save money on their own?
And it also tells you about a bit of a planning. I don't think federations can save money because they need to generate it to save.
No, the individual.
The
like
individual.
You work,
probably if you're a parent, you would.
What is he going to bring?
What do you mean he's overrated?
I think he's too overrated. He was just a guy who was so lucky to score 3 goals and then top scorer. Whoops! Then everyone wants him. Is that how football works?
I think it's about living in the moment, and you've got to take your chances. And footballers know how to do this. Agents know how to do this. They sell in the moment. And he scored 6 at the World Cup in 5 games. That's James Rodriguez for Colombia as they go to the quarterfinals of the World Cup for the very first time. I've got to say that in the aftermath of Barcelona signing Luis Suarez, I expected Real Madrid to react, because for them, they don't even need a player. They just have to go and sign a player. And now for paying £71 million, I'm thinking, are Madrid mad?
Too much.
But you've got to look at it. Madrid probably pay these obscene prices. They don't care. They'll pay whatever price. Because you look at Madrid, 3 of the 5 most expensive players in football history play for Madrid now. Ronaldo, Bale, now Rodriguez, and the other 2 at Barcelona. That is Neymar and Luis Suarez. So you've got to look at it in the sense that Madrid had to do this business. Will he be helpful? I think so. Because I think it's high time Madrid lessen the burden on Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay. I saw him yesterday in Tokyo and he talked about how he's fit and his body is now right at the level where he wants it because of a knee problem that he had last season. But even then, I think he needs to lessen the burden. And they need some player in that hole. But for me, it tells you a bit about how Madrid do their business. The player they sold in Mesut Ozil is exactly like James Rodriguez. Now, 1 year it seems like they're admitting to a mistake of sending Mesut Ozil to Arsenal by re-signing Rodriguez. So, some I don't get in that sense, but they've already signed to Toni Kroos and James Rodriguez, and I've got to say, I can't wait to look at the El Clasico. Probably tomorrow I'll tell you about comparing the 2 attacks, Suarez, Neymar, Messi, and then on the other side we have Rodriguez, Bale, Benzema, and Ronaldo, which I think is better. And I'll tell you, the color of your shirt tells me which team is better.
I still don't understand why Wenger is not buying a striker, but we shall see. But yesterday I was watching you on Omomori, and you know, some great analysis there, and it kind of made sense why we don't need a striker, but still, I think we need someone. We need someone who can just poach, wait, and punish, especially Man United. Catch Isma at 1:30 p.m. with Lumansi and Alan, and Monday we'll be talking with the guys at Sports Bar from Club Souk, 10:30 p.m. Go and get more of the analysis there. Before we leave you, take a look at your African proverb.